Dan Weiss joined by Florida Panthers Assistant General Manager Mike Santos as we're in the midst of training camp here at the AT&T Center. Mike, training camp in the American Hockey League is so short, it doesn't give a lot of guys an opportunity to make an impression. So how important is it for especially some of these guys on tryouts to come in here, be aggressive and prove that they belong on this squad in such a short amount of time?
Well, typically the tryout guys are the reason why we have this training camp. We're in a little bit different situation though this year. I think our depth is so good that there are a lot of NHL contract players that are fighting for spots on the Rampage team. This isn't a typical training camp for us. It's not one where guys come and they show up to San Antonio with their contract in hand and know they're going to be here. So there's going to be competition throughout this week, not only with the tryout players but also with the guys that have contracts, because we can't keep everybody.
Where would you say coming into this season the strength of this team lies? You talk about the depth, but is it specifically depth on defense, depth on forward, depth up the middle?
I think we've got a little bit of everything, which should make us a real strong team. But our defense and our goaltending should be the strength of the team. I mean, Jacob Markstrom, whenever he does arrive here in San Antonio, I believe will be one of the best goaltenders in the American Hockey League. He's a big guy, had an experience last year. So he's got 1 year under his belt. Also has been an international star as well. So I think that starts in goal. We also have great depth in goal with a guy like Tyler Plant, who's who would be in his 4th year pro. He can help out, and we've got another kid, Brian Foster, who's a 2nd year pro, who will probably end up in Cincinnati to start. But you could see action here during the year as well. But then when you move to the defense, we're big, we're mobile. We have a mixture of veterans and younger players. Of course, Rampage fans are familiar with Nolan Yonkman. He'll be back here, as well as Tyson Strachan, who's an up-and-coming guy, but a veteran in this league as well. Big, strong guy who can move the puck. And then we've got younger players like Colby Roback, Mike Caruso, who are top prospects for our organization in Florida. And then the depth just keeps going on. Adam Comrie, Evan Oberg, Seabrook. It really is a deep, deep defense, and a defense that has good size. Your
draft classes are maybe a year away from turning professional. Most of them will be back in juniors this year, but you have a couple of players that you signed as free agent rookies, like a Jonathan Hazen and Anthony Luciani, that I know you're expecting to come in here and make an impact this season.
Well, exactly. That's why we spoke about the defense, we spoke about the goaltending, but I also believe that we're real strong at forward because of the mixture we have of veterans and younger players. And whenever you can add young guys as free agents, I look at those guys as free players. You know, you only get 7 draft picks each year. You may accumulate a few more through trades, but it costs your players to get those draft picks. So whenever you can pick up young players as free agents, and especially guys that are as talented as Luciani and Hazen, it's a real bonus for you. And I expect both of those players will contribute.
You had a very active free agent shopping season, so to speak, in Florida. One of the moves that you made a little bit under the radar, acquiring Angelo Esposito from the then Atlanta Thrashers, now Winnipeg Jets organization. Here's a guy who's 21 years old, but he's already on his 3rd organization. He's dealt with a lot of injury issues the first couple of years, but he was a first-round pick. He was at one point considered maybe the consensus #1 overall pick back in 2007. You don't lose talent like that overnight, and I know he's hoping that this really could be the fresh start and the catalyst for him to, get back to where he expects to be, wouldn't you say?
No, absolutely. I've watched Angelo for years. I watched him as a junior player. I knew of him a little bit when I lived in Montreal for a couple of years, and so for him to be available to us at such a young age, I couldn't pass up that deal. He's a highly skilled player. As you mentioned, he's had a few injuries in his first couple of years. He also played in an organization, Atlanta, which is now Winnipeg, but an organization who's affiliated with the Chicago Wolves, and their philosophy is just a little bit different than ours. Their philosophy is to go with veteran players, to go with older players, where we like to give younger players a chance to develop and hopefully become good NHL players. And he fits that mold. He's a former 1st-round pick, and he's not even through his first contract, so the sky's the limit for him.
Talk about the addition of Corey Stillman to the hockey operations staff, what he'll bring to the table, and how he'll be an impactful presence here in San Antonio throughout the year.
Well, we're real proud in the a little more than a year that Dale Talon and I have been with the organization. We're real proud of what we've been able to do, acquiring young players and drafting young players. But the next step in the process is development, and that's where San Antonio comes in. It also comes in for our development people, and that includes Corey Stillman and Brian Scrudlin. So Brian Scrudlin will primarily deal with our draft picks and our younger players who are still playing in college and junior, and Corey Stillman will see a lot of time here in San Antonio, as well as with our affiliate in Cincinnati in the ECHL. So he'll be a real important guy when it comes to developing these young guys, and you can't say anything about his experience other than it's tremendous. I mean, not only has he played in the American Hockey League, he's a former first-round pick himself, but he's won Stanley Cups, and that's what we want all these guys to be here, as champions here in San Antonio and eventually champions in Florida.
And as a Boston guy, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Rob Tallis, your goaltending coach as well, too, and we should see him down here as well, working with both goalies throughout the season as well, correct?
Yes, that's my philosophy. My philosophy is to have all of our personnel visible here. I have Al Torr here, who's one of our pro scouts. He'll be here throughout training camp. Corey Stillman will be here throughout training camp. And then at different times of the year, you'll see other people. I mean, Brian Scrudlin will make it through here at times just to keep tabs on some guys. But Robbie Tallis will be here to work with our young goalies, especially Jacob Markstrom, who's a top prospect for us, as well as our strength and conditioning coach, Craig Slonwhite. He'll be here probably every couple of weeks as well.
The expectations are always to make the playoffs and to build a winning culture so that winning culture can translate up to Florida. Is it a tough balance, though, between winning and development as you go throughout the season?
It can be, but some of the things that we did in the past year, including affiliating with the Rampage, I think makes it easier for us. We know we've got a lot of young prospects who are top prospects. In fact, many of the hockey publications would say that we have the top prospects in all of hockey. And so it's important that we develop them properly and don't rush them into the NHL. So what we did in free agency at the NHL level this summer has allowed us to bring in players so that we can be competitive in the NHL for the next few years and let these younger players develop properly here in San Antonio and at the right pace so that we're not rushing them along into the NHL and we can be successful at both levels.
Mike, thanks for spending a few minutes with us. Good luck this season both here and in Florida, and we look forward to talking to you throughout the year.
Thanks, Dan. I look forward to working with you and all the staff here in San Antonio.
That's Mike Santos, Assistant General Manager for the Florida Panthers. I'm Dan Weiss. More coming up this week on SARampage.com.